Welcome to Breaking into Sterile Processing. This is that podcast that coaches new grads, career changers, and future sterile processing technicians into your first role. My name is Bill Rochelle, and I'm so glad to have you listening in today. You know, a little bit about myself. I started sterile processing back in 2005 after I made a great change in my life. And I was, 23 years old. I was looking for, an opportunity for me to be able to provide for my family, support my spiritual, religious life in church. And a friend of mine was a sterile processing technician. He snuck me on the night shift and began to tell me about sterile processing. And I want to give a big shout out to Mr. Mike Tanopka for doing that, for introducing me to such a great career. And I've been in the industry for a long time now, and I'm very, very passionate about students. It was about a year ago I started my first podcast called Sterilization Station. It was an empowerment podcast for sterile processing, and it still exists. However, I am so passionate about you, the students, and want to be here for you in your journey to do whatever I can do to help you land that first job. And so this podcast is going to be that success coach for all you students aiming to break into sterile processing or new grads that are struggling to land your first job. Maybe you're making a career change or you're a future sterile processing professional who's looking to land their first job. Please like this podcast, subscribe to this podcast because we exist for you to help you break into this industry. So in this podcast, we are going to break down real strategies that are going to include building a job-ready resume. Your resume is your digital resume, your social media presence. These things are so important in helping you to land that first job in sterile processing, and we are here for you. So if you're just tuning in, remember, we are here to support you in your quest to land that first job. And Bill Rochelle is not going to give up until you're putting on that badge and you're suiting up them scrubs and getting ready for that job that you put all that work in for. So we're also going to help you to stand out during your externships or your clinical rotations and externships. We're going to be here to support you, and we do have resources here to support you. I call it being your externship success coach. We're also going to help you to nail these interviews, providing great insight into what to do before you go to interview, how to prep for an interview, and all that will be incorporated into this podcast. So please, if you're wanting to land a role in sterile processing, this is the podcast you want to listen to. And we're going to help you to step into your first role with confidence. And one thing you learn about Bill Rochelle is he loves to empower and motivate and inspire those that he loves and that he cares for, as well as those in this network. I know what it's like. I had that preceptor that told me I couldn't make it. I'll never make it. I'll never get a job. And she became the fuel for my fire. And we are going to talk about that in this podcast. So please stay tuned. We're going to talk about staying on fire as well as the triangle of fire as it pertains to sterile processing. So I want you to make sure you continue to tune in because there's great content, guests coming your way that are going to help you to stay motivated. We're not going to have no fluff. There's not going to be no shortcuts, just guidance, strategy, and support because certification might open the door, but breaking into sterile processing is going to start with strategy, and we are going to help you to do that. So let's get you job ready and let's start breaking that glass. So the reality of getting hired in sterile processing, right? Hiring managers know that students can either come from online programs, a hybrid program, and also in-person programs. And they also know that each format has their strengths and their gaps, right? Your online programs, most of them don't come with externships, which creates a great problem for those who are trying to break into the industry. Because even if you went to a hybrid program or an in-person program with that 6-week externship for 6 CBSPD or that 10-week externship for HSPA, just because you finish that externship doesn't mean you're going to guarantee to get a job. However, we got the pro tips here today, pro tips on this podcast. They're going to help you to give you creative ways to help you land that first job. So please stay tuned. There's a lot of content, special guest speakers, success stories coming your way to help you land this first role. Online students often bring self-discipline and strong theory knowledge, where hybrid students usually balance theory with limited hands-on exposure. Some of your hybrid programs will have a lab, sterile processing programs with a lab and an externship. I believe my personal take on it that they do present you with the best opportunity to get hired. Doesn't mean you're going to land a job. It just means you're going to have the best opportunity to get hired. So your in-person students often have more lab time, but still they have limited real world flow. And that's where that externship is going to come in to help you. And so no format is going to be an automatic win, right? You have to put in the hard work. What matters is whether you can show your understanding of the SPD workflow, your respect for patient safety, and your willingness to learn and to adapt. So if you haven't been hired yet, it doesn't mean your education has failed you. Your education has not failed you because you haven't got hired yet. You need the coach. You need a sterile processing coaching guide, and that's what this podcast is going to do to help you. If you haven't been hired yet, just remember it does not mean that you failed. It means it's time to translate your learning into readiness, and that's something that you can control. So we also want to remember how important our resume really is, right? And there are some resume mistakes. We're going to go deeper into this in the podcast, but we are going to talk about that in this podcast, about how your resumes for online, hybrid, and in-person students. For online students, your resume must clearly show that you understand SPD workflows, that you have sought out hands-on exposure where possible. And I do have some creative ways that we can get this to you. And stay tuned, you're going to hear that and more to come. It shows you took initiative beyond the lectures. Now, for you hybrid students, you need to bridge the gap, right? You need to highlight both theory and practical exposure and show consistency across classroom and clinical learning. Whereas those in-person students, your mistake is often assuming that they know I had hands-on labs, and they don't unless you show it. Your resume must show that you've done that externship, and also letters of recommendation from supervisors or peers in the industry will be really good for you when applying for jobs. So your resume is not proof of where you went to school. It's proof of how seriously you took the profession. No matter your leaning format, your resume should communicate, one, I am prepared to safely contribute to the department, and that is absolutely achievable. Another thing that can hinder you from landing your sterile processing job is applying too early, especially if you haven't gone through your externship. If you're in an externship or hybrid program that offers externship, you want to wait until you finish that externship. Now, my personal take is if you finish the online program, don't wait for externship. It's going to be very hard to get an externship if you went through an online program. We'll talk about that more later, but you can still apply for those jobs, and you want to get your resume ready because that's the first thing they're going to look at. And just a little pro tip, make sure your social media tags are professional. Shouldn't be like Hot Mama 123. I know y'all laughing, but they're not going to hire you if he says Hot Mama 123. They're not. Make sure you're a professional. Get a LinkedIn account, get a professional picture, get someone to help you with your LinkedIn page. If you need help, please let me know. We can definitely assist you. Applying too early looks different depending on how you learn, right? So online students, you may apply before you're seeing a real department. There's nothing wrong with that. Hybrid students, you may apply before finishing your hands-on components. Totally fine. And in-person students, you may apply assuming lab time equals readiness. None of these make you irresponsible. They just make you eager. And so that's really, really good. Eagerness is always good, right? Strategy, but a more perfect strategy will always be better. And don't miss your chance. Your learning timing, wait until you can confidently speak about it. Clinical exposure, understanding the workflows, then apply with confidence and not hope. And then there's even a way that, you can prepare for these interviews, right?